So, the final portion of our carbohydrate lectures talks about meeting our carbohydrate needs. So, we're going to talk about how the carbohydrate intake of Americans compares with recommendations. We're going to do some sample calculations for the percentage of calories from carbohydrate in food or in our diet. And we're going to talk about how food labels are used to identify foods that are high in fiber and low in added sugar. So, what are the carbohydrate recommendations? So, basically, from a metabolic standpoint, we need enough carbohydrate to meet our glucose needs. And we need to be choosing types for health promotion and disease prevention. The recommended daily allowance, or RDA, for carbohydrate for everyone is 130 grams per day. And the AMDR, or acceptable macronutrient distribution range for carbohydrates, is 45 to 65% of total calorie intake. And for fiber intake, most people do not meet this, and I find this more common than not, is 38 grams a day for men and 25 grams a day for women. And I know in the previous lecture I talked about the recommendations for sugar intake. So once again, that's about 6 teaspoons per day for women and 9 teaspoons a day for men, or 100 calories a day for women and no more than 150 calories a day for men. We're going to talk about the challenges with reading labels and sugars. So here's looks like a runner, a very healthy person, and this is a vegetarian diet they have. And as we know, I have lots of friends that eat a plant-based diet as well as myself, and so we're all carbohydrates, right? So carbohydrates can't be bad because there's lots of very healthy individuals who consume 100% carbohydrates, as well as some protein and fats, but they certainly don't limit their carbohydrate intake. So does this diet meet the RDA and the AMDR for carbohydrate intake and the adequate intake for fiber? So this is similar to the example in the textbook. So we know that the RDA is 130 grams per day for carbohydrates, and we see the total carbohydrates in this diet is 500 grams per day. So this diet is above that. The AMDR is 45 to 65%, so this diet is above that, because what we would do is take 500 grams and times 4 calories per gram, and that gives us 2,000 calories from carbohydrate. And then if we take that 2,000 calories from carbohydrate divided by the 3,000 calorie total times 100 to give us percent, that means that 67% of the calories from this particular example is from carbohydrate. And then we know that the AI for fiber is 38 grams a day for men and 25 grams a day for women, and they only consume 20 grams per fiber, so it is below the AI for fiber. So let's think this through. So when we look at a nutrition facts label, so we're looking for many things. As far as sugars, unfortunately, you can't easily tell by looking at the nutrition facts label of a food if it contains added sugar. And what you learned is the 520 rule doesn't talk about carbohydrates. The line for sugars includes both added and natural sugars. Naturally occurring sugars are found in milk, lactose, and fructose. And any product that contains milk, such as yogurt, milk, or cream, or fruit, fresh or dried, contains some natural sugars. So it may be more important to look at sugars and also look at the ingredients label. When we choose carbohydrates wisely, the 2010 Dietary Guidelines in My Plate focuses on increasing our consumption of whole grain fruits and vegetables, and increasing our consumption of reduced or low-fat dairy products, so no more whole-fat dairy products, everybody. We want to limit our foods high in refined grains and added sugars, though that's difficult to tell unless we really look at the ingredients label. The dietary guidelines specifically recommend reducing intake of sugar-sweetened beverages, and I hope that you learn that from this course. That includes sports drinks. We're going to go into great detail about that. Sodas, energy drinks, any sort of sugar-sweetened beverage. The My Plate recommendations are 6 ounces of grains, half should be whole grains, and I say 3 to 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day for a 2,000 calorie diet, or for any diet, really. As far as the choosemyplate.gov, the focus here is choosing our carbohydrates wisely, and the healthiest carbohydrate choices are whole grains, beans, fresh fruits, and vegetables, which are low in added sugar and often are good sources of fiber. Foods containing refined carbohydrates should be limited because they're typically low in fiber and contain added sugars, which are empty calories. As far as interpreting food labels, there's a few things to look at. The nutrition facts panel of the food label lists the number of grams of total carbohydrates and fiber and gives these as amounts of the percent of the daily value. So it's good. Fiber is part of the 520 rule, so the greater the fiber amount, the more fiber that's in there. The daily value for total carbohydrate is 60% of the diet's energy content, or 300 grams. For a 2,000 calorie diet, the daily value for fiber in a 2,000 calorie diet is 25 grams. And then really we want to look at the ingredients list for words that say whole grains. So look for the word whole before the name of the grain. If it says wheat flour, it was made with wheat but not whole wheat. And if it says multigrain, stone ground, 100% wheat, cracked wheat, 7-grain or bran, that is not necessarily 100% whole grain products and may not contain any whole grains. What we like to refer to that is brown bread. Also, in processed foods, label can tell you if it contains added sugars, brown sugar, corn sweetener, corn syrup, fruit juice concentrates, high fructose corn syrup, honey, malt sugar, molasses, raw sugar, syrup, all of that is extra sugar. Interpreting food labels high in fiber, as we learned the 520 rules. High fiber has to contain 20% or more of the daily value per serving, and good sources are anything between 10 and 19% of the daily value. As well, interpreting the food labels here when it comes to sugars. This list, you can see with this yogurt, a lot of yogurts are as sweet and have as much sugar as some ice creams. We see on this low-fat yogurt, lots of sugar, high fructose corn syrup. And you can see on the ingredient list, all of these are added sugar, the brown sugar, corn sweetener, the things I listed before. The number of grams of sugar listed includes the total amounts of mono and disaccharides. A good rule of thumb is 1 teaspoon of sugar equals 4 grams. If you can only have 9 teaspoons a day, you can do the math there. There are some proposed changes to the nutrition facts label that include putting the grams of added sugars as a separate line below the sugars, and I think that would be immensely helpful. And that's the end of chapter 4. Thank you, and have a good evening.